You are in the Words Huddle with me, Bram. No Maxime today, but with me per usual, my boy and producer, Marcus.
What's up, Dev Nation?
MT. Gosh, we haven't had one that was just you and I. And let me start this with something that's been on my mind, but we haven't had a chance to explore it all. So a few weeks back, we had Nat Fluential on. We do our judgment theater. And in her very special way, she basically calls us both fucking pompous and douchey. And I am used to taking punches, like they happen all the time. I'm almost just, I don't know, familiar with it at this stage. But you don't take that many. How did it hit you, man? I didn't really get to ask you. You doing okay after that?
It cut deep. Nat, if you're listening, it cut deep. Normally I try to, first impressions are important to me. And, that was the first time Nat and I had met that way, and, to come off that way. And she was just like, oh, he's definitely douchey. I was like, whoa, okay. So, when the mics went cold, I had to make sure I let her know, like, this is all entertainment. And I had said it with a smile on my face, but I'm still hurt. I cried.
To be perfectly, I've known you long enough where when she said that, I was like, "Ooh, I'm not." That kind of would have hurt me. And here I pulled this just in case it would make you feel any better. So we get reviews on iTunes and a bunch of other services, and I check it all the time. I don't talk about it, but you know me, man. I'm hell of neurotic. Other people's opinions mean the world to me, even though I pretend like they don't. And here is a recent 1-star review we got on Apple. Quote, Bram is really what bugs me on this show. All self-centered and annoying, introduces a segment, and then I'll go first. Repetitive, ill-conceived, regular segments that get conceptually explained every freaking pod. So if he had just called me douchey and pompous, it would have been a huge upside. Like if that's all this had said, dude, it would have been in a much better place. So I don't know if that makes you feel any better, but there's people out there. This wasn't even the first impression. I've never met this gentleman, and they very clearly hate me.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make me feel too good. You're the host and leading this podcast, so hopefully we didn't lose him as a listener.
I don't think there's any question there. I mean, note to that guy, there's a million podcasts that don't feature my voice. The fuck are you doing on this one? That's like watching soccer and be like, you know what? I hate sports where people use their feet. Like, what are you watching this for, man? It doesn't make any sense. But
spoiler alert, we are about to do the same segments in a second.
And I'll be going first, and we'll probably explain them. And it is what it is. But I'll use that as our push-off point. So we normally start this with the glass half full. I'd explain that as a fuck you to that guy, but we spent too much time on him already. But this week I'm going to change a little bit. All right, we don't go through. Don't give me what you like and what you don't. Instead, I'm going to give you my concerns, and then I'm hoping you can talk me out of it. All right. So we have addressed whether or not we should be worried the last 2 podcasts. And to be perfectly frank, I'm getting a little bit more concerned. Now, let me say right from the jump, still believe in this team. Still view them as title contenders. More than that, man. If I had to bet something, a phrase I use all the time that means something to me, I'd bet the Warriors as winning the title. But I have a couple of concerns that are starting to develop, and I've got to at least be honest about them. And they are these. The way I look at title contenders, the things that separate teams that are really good and teams that can definitely win in the playoffs are kind of threefold. It's defense, it's depth, right? And it's the ability to win on the road. Right now, the Warriors are at Orlando. I'm not sure how that's going to go out. But at the time of this, they have not won a single fucking game on the road. The defense has put them at the, I think, either 8th or 9th worst in the league. And it's the depth. It's the second unit that's leading to these problems, So if you've got these 3 bullet points you need to make sure you make it to a finals, and none of them are there through the first, 8 games, we at least have to acknowledge it. Not that I think it's going to be for the whole season, but shit, man, there's something that's going on out there. Am I crazy to say this? Am I becoming Chicken Little Twitter?
No, I don't think so. Those are good barometers and good things to keep an eye on. And we've traditionally, when we've had successful seasons / championship seasons, it's because we started off strong. Mm-hmm. I think last season, Boston starting off as a sub 500 team and then having a strong run is probably more of an anomaly than it is something that we should pattern ourselves after for this season. But we're young, we've played good facets of a game in each game, but we haven't put them all together. In one game, we shot really well, but our defense was terrible. Another one, we played great defense, but we didn't shoot the ball well. This last game, We shot better from 3-point range, from 2 points. We had more rebounds. We had, like more transition points. And the one thing that we lost was the turnover battle. So, when you factor that in, we haven't played a complete game yet. So once we do that and the younger team or the younger players on the team know what that feels like, hopefully it'll start to come together and they'll realize what it takes and what it feels like to do that. But I think you're right in starting to at least lift the lid up on that panic button.
Well, you know what you just said helped me kind of figure out why I'm starting to shift in my level of concern. If it's 1 out of 10, I'm not at 10, I'm not at 9, but if last week I was at a 1, this week I'm at a 4, let's say. And one of the reasons it's that way, man, is that this is a different problem. So when I looked at it before, when I was at the 1, the way I justified it to myself is, look, new players, new roles. They got to we lost OPJ, all the things we've said. We've got these new guys. It's going to take a minute for them to gel. And the Warriors have done that. We've seen that throughout their dynastic run. Spates, David West, Livingston, Barbosa, OPJ. They've done that. They've brought people in. The thing that's different this time is the youth, right? It's not just bringing or having people play new roles. It's people who are just learning how to play in this league, also learning how to play in these new roles. So it's a different circumstance. They've never had to teach people both how to play in the system and in the NBA at the same time. So
exactly. They're building the plane while they fly it. And I think one thing that's lost that should be counted too is DiVincenzo is hurt.
Yeah.
So even though he's not a like-for-like replacement of OPJ or Gary Payton II, he's a really good player, and he was taking up the minutes so that we didn't have to throw Moody and Kuminga into the deep end this way. So, I think his loss is kind of magnified right now, but in a way that people aren't appreciating. They're just focusing on the fact that we're not playing well and winning.
He's a vet. He's a guy they wouldn't have to teach how to play in the NBA, right? He's just the new role guy. So to fit this into like the normal rubric, the glass half empty, JK and Wiseman are not ready to contribute during the playoff run, and that is an issue. So to get a glass half full analysis, I'm going to give you 3 possible solutions. You tell me if you think any of them will work. All right. Here's the first, and it's the most familiar. We've been talking about it all the time. It's give them time. These are young guys. They need to make mistakes. There is no substitute for actually getting out there and feeling like, whatever problems you're going to have, make the mistake and learn from it. So solution number 1, give them time, and then they will be ready by the playoffs. What do you think? Is it doable?
I think it's doable. There is a anonymous exec from the Eastern Conference, didn't say anything else, but he said Kuminga and Wiseman are just not that good.
Saw that.
And it makes you wonder if they were playing the game to see if the Warriors will bite and let them go, which obviously the Warriors aren't silly or that stupid, but it makes you wonder if that story is even getting out there. If there's a crack in the armor of what people think about them, sure, then that question is a good one. Like, will a full season of trial by fire, reveal that these players are actually steel, or will it melt them down? So I think it's to be determined. I still think there's a big upside for Wiseman. Kuminga, his skill set feels a little awkward. It's a little based too much on athleticism. So, but they see more than we do on the practice, and Iguodala's all in. So you got to kind of trust the vets.
I mean, am I confident? Am I positive that time will work? That they will definitely be ready if they just keep coming out there? No, I'm not sure. I'm not positive of it. I think this is what's ultimately going to happen. I don't think these other 2 solutions are what's going to go down. We'll cover them in a second, but I'm not 100% sure that just putting them in there and learning will ultimately solve all our problems, and I'll tell you who I think may buck at it. It's the ownership group, so I'm going to give you a really stupid example. All right. And I promise I'll round this back, but I recently bought a new bike. Loved it. Absolutely loved the new bike. And I rode it for a couple of times, and the fucking brakes started making noise, MT. And I looked it up online, and what it said was new brakes make noise. You got to fucking break them in. You got to be on it. You got to work through it for a while. So what it needed was time. Yeah. But I spent a ass ton of money on that bike, MT. I don't need to be riding around with it screaming behind me. And so even though all it told me was I needed time, I brought that shit in 3 different times to the mechanics and I had them fucking fix it. If I'm Joe Lacob and I'm spending more money than anyone has ever spent on any franchise in the history of the game, at some point, it's not okay that my brakes are making noise. And it's not okay that they tell me, just take time, it's coming. And we're not there yet. We're to 8 games right now, but we get to 20 games, 25 games, 30 games, and there's still this, well, I'm not really sure about the second unit. I think there's going to be an increase in pressure. I don't see them just being fine with, no, this is how it goes.
Yeah, I agree. I think you should take your bike in again too and just make sure. But no, I agree.
They hate me at that bike store. That's not a joke at all. It started off friendly, and now it's just like, yeah, I know that you're telling me to give it time. Also, fix this shit, dude. I'm done with this.
And also stop introducing your segments on your podcast.
Whatever. It might have been that guy who wrote that review. I'm trying to get over that, man. Please stop bringing it up. And I'm hurt as is, you pompous bastard.
I think you have to give them time. There's also the fact that we don't know who these players are. Like Clay has traditionally started slow every season.
Yep.
And now 8 games in, he's not off to gangbusters, and everybody, it seems like a lot of people forget that. And they're like, Clay is terrible. But it's like, Clay's never been good in the first 14, 15 games of the season. He always takes a while to warm up. So we know that. Like maybe, Wiseman and Kuminga are like that. Wiseman still fouls way too much. Kuminga is, hot and cold in terms of being productive and engaged and locked in. Maybe that's the way that they are as players. We don't know yet. They haven't played enough meaningful games. So, you got to give them time for that. I think 20, 25 games is a good barometer to test it. But the challenge too right now is Kuminga and Wiseman aren't getting enough minutes to really have the 25 games be a true litmus test. Like at this pace, it'll take 50 games, right? So either you have to throw them in there and give them more minutes and let them figure it out, or not. And it's a tough balance that Kerr has to do.
Perfect transition, right? So we're using the phrase games, but it's not really games. If you plays 30 seconds in a game, and that's one game they've played in, that's not going to be enough. It's minutes. It's getting out there and getting time in real situations. So here's the second solution. If you think it'll help, send Kuminga and Wiseman to the G League. They play 40 minutes a night or however many they can possibly handle. The ball is constantly going through them. They are using the Warrior system. What do you think? Does that solve the problem?
I don't. Not at this point. I think last year it does. I think this year, the fact that Moody would not be joining them and where they are, that in the offseason there was talk that you guys are going to step up and need to fill these holes in the roster that are leaving. I think it'll be more detrimental to both of those players mentally than physically. So getting the minutes is helpful. But I think from a confidence standpoint, they need to stay on the Warriors, even if they're only getting 11, 13 minutes, total. That's still better than 40 minutes in the G League based on what it could do to their psyche.
Absolutely. I mean, I agree, and I'll add to it, if what we want them to do is get used to the experience of playing in the NBA and then be ready for the pressure of a playoff run. It doesn't replicate that? G League minutes, man. It's just not. You're not going to have the competition. You're not going to have the pressure. You're not going to have, the extra eyes that are constantly watching you. What they need is what they're going through right now. They need this kind of scrutiny. And at least what we've seen from JK so far hasn't necessarily suggested that he's ready to take it and run with it. So no, I don't think a G League stint matters either. The third and final option is a trade. So let me say into this mic right now, I do not think that they should make a trade. That is not what I'm saying yet. But that I think that if we get to that 25 game mark, that 30 game mark, the whole Steph's window is closing thing is going to become a much larger deal, especially with how he's playing. I mean, he's playing at an MVP level right now. That last loss came with a 30-point triple-double. And at some point, if they aren't capitalizing on what he's still capable of, I think we're going to start hearing the trade thing. So I've got some names here for you. They're all bullshit. But let me just start generally speaking. trade, even worth saying that word, or way too early right now?
I think it's too early, but there are probably some names that you're going to throw out there that I would consider. I mean, I'm thinking of two right now that were mentioned with another team. So if you drop those, we can talk about them. But I do think it's too early. I think the value we would get back, it wouldn't be the same. Like we would have to downgrade just based on the economics of it. Like,
Here, I'll give
like
you one.
not going to increase our payroll anymore, and you still have Wiseman and Kuminga on extended rookie contracts. So to bring in somebody of probably the names you're going to throw out there is going to just make the bill go higher, and it's going to cause even more problems for us retaining Draymond in the core.
Just for entertainment, all it is. Not suggesting this. Don't aggregate me. But ESPN's trade machine tells me we could offer Wiseman and Kuminga right now for Miles Turner. And we know that Indiana is tanking out. We know that Turner wants the fuck out. He's been talking about the Lakers. If he wants to join LA, I'm sure he'd be very happy in Golden State. No deep analysis, but how does that hit you? I throw that name at you. Are you interested?
Yeah, that was the name I was hoping you were going to say. I was going to throw Buddy Hield in there too, because I know they keep talking about Turner and Hield as a package. I'm not sure the money works because
money's harder.
Big contract. Yeah,
the money's harder.
So removing Hield, I would think about that. I'm not sure of the fit of Kuminga in the league long term, and Wiseman is a good product, but Miles Turner does what he does a little bit better. He doesn't command the paint and catch alley-oops like that, but he blocks shots better. He doesn't foul as much, and he's a way better three-point shooter. So I would think long and hard about that.
He provides both offense and defense to the second unit, the two things we're currently missing, right? I'll give you another one. This is a real random one. All right. So Utah's had some success, but they want to lose. Yeah. And so Kuminga and Ty Jerome for Kelly Olynyk.
Ooh.
I mean, talk about no upside, not sexy in any way, shape, or form. Headband guy, which is always kind of exciting. I mean, competent dude. Kelly Olynyk fits in that list of veterans we talked about before, the David Wests of the world. Like he'd come in, exactly what to expect. Again, no deep analysis, but interested?
I'm not, just because defensively he's not that strong. I think what you get, I'm listening to Miles Turner because he has led the league in blocks and is a strong force in the paint. Kelly Olynyk is the opposite of that. The knock on him is he's a great shooter and great on offense, but he's not very good on defense.
For those who aren't watching on YouTube, and you should be, why aren't you? It's so much better seeing our faces. But those of you who aren't, what you didn't get a chance to see is when I said Kelly Olynyk, MT started kind of nodding his head. And internally, I'll let you know, I was like, Bram, you beautiful son of a bitch, you've done it again. You've come up with a great name. And then no, dude, you immediately shot it down. All right, so those are the three options. Time, G League, trade. If Myers gave you a call, or Lacob, anybody, a decision maker for the Warriors, said, all right, your options, man, A through C, which of those do you think you would choose?
And the trade is on the table, and Indiana says, yes, we'll give you Miles Turner right now.
Yep. Which I think they would. I mean, I don't know that, but I think they would.
It's early, so I don't think Bob Myers will do it, but I would do the trade. I would trade for Miles Turner. I don't think time at this pace, at 13 minutes a game, and 17 respectively of Kuminga and Wiseman, will afford them the opportunity to learn and kind of figure it out, while Steph and Clay and Draymond are in this shortened window. So I like Miles Turner better as a fit. We tried to go after him, at least through this podcast, last offseason. So I would do the trade.
Yeah, I think as of now, I would say time, but that trade option is coming up real fast, man. And it'll be interesting to see, because if you're Lacob, you've got two competing concerns. One is what I talked about, the whole bike thing. I've spent $500 million. Where the hell is my title team? But the other is all the credit he got last year. He had his cake and ate it too. They had the two championship windows, and everyone was like, oh my God, look at what Golden State. They are light years ahead. And for them to go into the trade thing concedes, that those two title windows thing actually didn't happen. So I guess we'll see. I mean, only time will tell.
Yeah. And I mean, you look at what the traditionally has performed best in those roles for us, and it's not a athletic center. Like JaVale McGee is a little different, but like Joe Lacob came over and brought Bogut right in, and he wasn't shooting threes, and he was blocking shots and being a presence in the paint. I see Miles Turner doing that more than Wiseman, even though Wiseman's a big body. And I'm just not sure how Kuminga is going to fit moving forward. So I would do the trade, but it's probably too early.
We'll find out. I'm sure that we will have nothing but weeks to go back through this. Let's flip to our golden questions. Just in case you don't know what this repetitive segment is, let me give you an explanation for it. It's our mailbag. This is where we get questions either about us or the Warriors. And I've had one I've been sitting on for a while. All right. So here's the question. Quote, how do you feel about Charles Barkley's take on Klay? And we got this question when it first happened. That was last week. But since there's been some responses. So on TNT's halftime show, which I love, Chuck took some shots at Klay Thompson. Klay then responded, Steph responded, and now most recently, Barkley offered his renewed take. Let me play that for you now.
I think you saw tonight, he's like, this young boy is kicking my ass. Ain't nothing I can do about it. There was a time when Klay Thompson was the best two-way guard in the NBA, and he's not the same guy.
It hurts when, someone like Charles Barkley with the platform he has says you're not the same player prior to the injuries you have. It's like, no duh, man. Consecutive years, I tore my ACL, my Achilles in consecutive years. Give me some freaking time to get that back. And just, who goes through something like that and comes back? I don't know. It just hurt my heart hearing that.
The comments are part of our success, right? You're always going to be in the spotlight, and people care about how you're playing and care to comment positively or negatively. But it's interesting just because certain guys kind of forget what their careers look like on the back end, so you can kind of cast and throw those stones.
So now, what would be the thing you want to say on top of that?
I was disappointed that he thought he took it personally. I said a few years ago he was the best two-way guard in the NBA, but because of age and injuries, he's not the same player. I didn't say he was a bomb. I'm saying he's not the same player he was.
Did you expect him to be the same player?
No, but I was asked. I was talking about what I've been seeing. Going back, I can go back to the finals. When I went back to the finals last year, I'm saying, like, man, he says give him time. No, you don't get, when you get older, time ain't your friend. I love Klay, and that's what bothered me. I love that kid. I love everything about him. And like I say, I used to say this guy's the best two-way player in the NBA. Mm-hmm. But because of age and injuries, he's not the same guy.
All right. I want to say I'll go first to give you time to think as another FU to that review, but I feel real strongly on this, so I'm going to let you go first, and then I'll give my take. What do you think, man? How do you feel about Barkley's takes there?
So I think the spirit of what Barkley said is right. I think his second take of it, not clarifying the way that he was saying it, the right way, to me is where the problem lies. His take that Klay Thompson isn't the same player is true. Klay being hurt by that is natural. Steph defending him and everybody else defending him is natural. Barkley's second take of saying, look, I love the kid. He's always said that. That's true. When we were debating and they were asking, Charles Barkley, who his favorite two guard was, he would say Klay Thompson. They'd say, who do you think has a better jump shot or a prettier jump shot, Steph or Klay? He'd say Klay every time. So it's not like this deep hatred that he has for Klay like he does for the Bay Area. He really likes Klay. So I think what was missing from his second take was that him admitting, like, yes, he said it. He said, this is my job, but he didn't put it in the right context. His job is to analyze the game that's in front of him. And the game that's in front of him is a player that isn't what he used to be. I think he missed the chance on the second time to say, I'm just analyzing the game that's in front of me. That's my job. Yes, it will take more time for Klay to be back to the player that I think he can be, or that he was when he was the best two guard. We'll have to wait and see if he gets back there. I think that little wait and see part is what was missing and what kind of hurt Klay the most, because he's not saying that Klay can't get back there. He's just saying he's not there right now, which is factual, but it still hurts. And, Klay is going to use it as fuel.
Dude, I'll tell you what was missing: an ounce of fucking compassion, Marcus. That was totally unacceptable for me. I mean, totally unacceptable. Let me start with, is it true or not? Who gives a shit? True does not make things okay to nationally blast out. If I see a woman who's overweight in public, I can't go over and say, you know what, you are fat. That doesn't make it okay that it's true. It is, there are social norms you're not allowed to do. Is he allowed to critique players? Of course he is. Is that his job? Of course it is. But critiquing somebody because they've gotten older and they're on the other side of two surgeries is not his job. I think that there's been a long standing history of recognizing as players get older, you don't take shots at that. I'll give it a different context. If Jordan Poole came out and was playing shitty after a $100 million contract and Barkley had anything to say, totally justified. That's his job, and that's exactly what you do. But to take shots at Klay now, when he's coming back, he's getting older and coming back from two major surgeries, all you're pointing out is the linear passage of time, asshole. It hit me, and maybe it's because I'm getting older. Maybe it's because I love Klay. Maybe it's because I'm frustrated by the way that the Warriors are playing. But re-listening to it, even just now, it upsets me, man. It's ridiculous. He was off on that. When Barkley got old and fat, and Steph kind of pointed this out, nobody got behind a mic and said, oh, whose game has changed? Barkley. We all saw it. Nobody has to point it out on national television. So it was wrong in my eyes, and it's hitting me. It's not a rational take. It's an emotional one, but it's one I feel strongly about, man.
Yeah, I could tell. I didn't take it quite as personally.
I could tell too.
Emotional side. Yeah. I mean, I didn't like that he did it. And you can tell from his tone, like you were saying, there wasn't a ton of empathy in it. But that said, I just, I think it's the flip side, like what we love about Charles Barkley when he's talking about other players in other cities. And, like he called all the fans in San Antonio, overweight. And, yep. We're not San Antonio fans, so we laugh about it. So I think I think that comes with the territory that, if I love his takes and laugh at what he says and nod my head when he's talking about other people, then I have to be able to take that medicine when he's talking about the people I care about.
I think that's fair, but just because I'll a different view on it. What he has always been good at is drawing eyeballs. Charles Barkley, it's not his analysis that's phenomenal. His analysis, generally speaking, is fairly basic. I'm not even sure if he watches anything beyond highlights. What he is great at is controversy. And this is a perfect example of it. Here we are talking about him. That helps TNT. He's good at what he does. But just because he's creating controversy, I don't necessarily give him credit for it. If he punched a baby in the face, we'd talk about it, and it would probably raise his Q score, or at least the amount of people talking about his name, but it doesn't justify it to me. He's punching my baby, MT, and it's not okay, dude. I am not okay with it. All right, go to the look around the league. For those who are new to the show, this is where I stop talking. Marcus has looked around the league, pulled some stories from all types of teams, and we'll pick one and venture into it. MT, what have you found?
All right. I got a couple of things. A couple have some Warriors ties to it too, but I felt like they were worth bringing up. So first one, probably one that everybody's expecting. Steve Nash is let go by the Brooklyn Nets. And sources are saying that Ime Udoka is the front runner to replace him. So we could talk about all the problems that would create and kind of how that comes to be, and if that were to happen, kind of what message is that sending. Second story is Kyrie's apology / non-apology about promoting the anti-Semitic film that he's been in controversy about. Adam Silver recently came out and said what was missing from his, response was an apology, and he was, kind of disheartened by that. So we could talk about Kyrie being Kyrie. And then two other ones. One, Jordan Poole's been called for carrying the ball a lot. That's Warriors, but what makes it look around the league is that they're starting to call it with other players now. And John Morant chimed in on Twitter and said everybody does it. So, is this a thing that will start to pick up, or, we can talk about the impact of the referee starting to make that call a little bit tighter now. And last but not least, Dwight Howard recently said that, if you didn't know, he's actually been a Warrior for life, and that he would be very helpful in mentoring James Wiseman. And true to form, and I love it, Zaza Pachulia said, absolutely not, get out of here. So we can talk about Zaza's response to that. And I didn't know that Dwight Howard was a Warrior for life, but we could talk about that as well.
I'm not sure he totally is positive about what Warriors means in that context. I also saw that clip. I'll keep the Dwight Howard thing real fast. I have zero interest in him on this team. We just discussed how the Warriors need a size, and they need some kind of addition, some change. I don't think Howard's that guy. Do you?
No.
Okay. So we won't go deep into that at all. Maybe. In fact, if I had to choose between the two, I'd prefer Zaza fucking suited back up, man, in a heartbeat. Kyrie is too long of a conversation. I do think we'll talk about that. And as a Jewish American, I have some takes on it, but we don't have to jump down that rabbit hole quite yet. I want to see how this thing plays out and what the league does. And then we can have a comprehensive conversation, which leads the Nets and them hiring Udoka or Jordan Poole and the traveling thing. What are you heading towards? Which one seems more interesting?
I think there's a little more meat to the bones on the Udoka one, but the carrying is going to be interesting. It's been around for a while, so
let's do Udoka. But I will add to the JP story. I saw them interview or ask Kerr about it, and he pointed out that it has been going on forever. And I think what he said was that it started when Allen Iverson convinced the league it wasn't a travel, that of course it's a travel, that everybody does it. And it's weird that they're starting to call it now. I don't know the officiating in that Miami game was a little suspect throughout, and I'm going to overuse this term throughout the year. It made me think of the Tim Donahue documentary yet again. But yeah, it was, I guess it's not surprising to see them calling it in different ways because they seem to be totally subjective and there's not a lot of objectivity on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a carry when he does it. I remember vividly just watching some games and seeing him do it, and I'm like, that's a carry. I guess you can do that now, but like Kevin Durant does it too. There's been a few times where I'm like, Kevin Durant can do that. Like that seems like a carry. So if they start calling on him, then I'll believe that it's a crackdown. Otherwise, I think I'm on Kerr's side, where at least be just asking for a consistency, because a lot of players do that same move.
I mean, what Jordan Poole needs to do is start bringing a copy of his contract and hand it to the refs. It's like, I'm $100 million player, dude. I am allowed to travel. Like, I'm not sure why you're calling this in any way, but that brings us to Udoka. What a weird story. So it sounds like it's done deal. Sounds like Udoka is going to the Nets. Nash is out. I saw a TikTok from him where he was dancing, and I think the line underneath was, when you don't have to deal with Kyrie on a daily basis. So good for him. The idea that they're bringing Udoka in, so maybe you can help explain this to me. If what he did was so awful that the Celtics decided, okay, that's it, we're going to suspend you for a year and then you're probably gone forever, then why is it not so awful for the Nets? Why is it okay from the Nets perspective? That was over in Boston. Here in, Brooklyn, everything's fine. I don't get the distinction.
Yeah, I don't get the distinction either. I mean, Udoka was a assistant coach there under Nash, so maybe he, has different relationships with the Nets organization and front office that we're unaware of. But we still don't know the reason why he, was also let go from Boston. We've heard the reports, but nothing has been confirmed. If the reports are true, and he was, like having inappropriate relationships with wives and daughters or family members of, executive level people in the Celtics organization, then is that an offense that means you shouldn't be able to work ever again in the league? I don't know about that. Should he not work for the Celtics again? Yeah, I think it gives the Celtics an easier way to say, like, leave. We're not going to fire you and deal with the whole legal issue of this. We're going to let you go, and another team wants you. So everybody, at least from their side, wins. Not the women who, were caught up in this as well, or the families. But it's just a weird situation. I don't know why the Nets are looking at this dumpster fire and saying, what would be great? Adding more Udoka to this. Like, it seems like they're just oblivious to what this would do, unless they know something we don't, and he would just come in and fix everything. But it's a weird choice.
It's a panic move. At least that's the way I'm interpreting it. And I tell you what, details mean everything. If the details are that he had an extramarital affair, that's one thing. If it's nastier than that, and we don't know. I won't even venture any guesses. But if it's nastier than that, then it's hard to justify that he's landed on another team. But I will say this: I'm kind of expecting us to learn the details. If I'm fucking Boston, and I know these things, and I've kept it all real quiet, and now a very heated rival and someone I'm going to need to get through during the playoffs has a coach who makes a difference. He made a giant difference from them last year. One of the things I'm doing is leaking the details. Like, okay, Nets, like, you want this story on your hands? Here's the story. And let's see, because why not? I mean, at that stage, I would want them to deal with the full blown fallback. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I don't think that they will do it like really send out a press release, with the Boston Celtics letterhead, but it will get leaked somehow on accident. I agree. I think they would do that. I just don't. Yeah, something has to be deeper about that story, because you heard like Matt Barnes, was immediately like went to Udoka's defense when he heard about it, and then came back out 12 hours later and said, I talked to some people. Yeah, that's way worse than I thought. Like, I'm on the other side now. Like, that was all bad. That was deep. So
Richard Jefferson too. Richard Jefferson did the exact same thing. Like, when you guys find out the details on this, you are going to be shocked. Then that doesn't sound like him sleeping with somebody else. It sounds like there's something else there.
Yeah. And it's, them saying it too is kind of like a matter of when you guys find it out too. So I agree. If this move happens, it seems like Brooklyn is, like putting their head in the sand, like not acknowledging, or just they're okay with the fact that the details will come out. And it's like, it's just another story off the court that the Nets would have to deal with. It's like, I don't know. If I'm Boston, I have Grant Williams dress up as Superman and then just read the details during a press conference. It's like, here it is. Here's what's gone down. Maybe he has a good Superman voice too. Exactly.
All right, MC. Well, shit, man. It's good having a 2-man booth. This was big fun per usual. You want to reach out to us, you guys, if you enjoyed this, if you hated it, if you want to give us a 1-star review, if anything. Let me stop that. Don't give us another 1-star review. I'm hurting right now. I don't know if I could take another one. But if you want to reach out and call Marcus Pompous, that's all good. You can do that on our email account. That's Warriors Huddle or Huddle at warriorshuddle.com. And our social media account is only in one place. That's Twitter at Warriors Huddle. And finally, but perhaps most importantly, check out our YouTube page. It helps us, and I think it adds a whole new component to the show. With that in mind, go Warriors. Hopefully, see you next week.